20 school lunches from the 1960s that no kid would touch today. Remember when school lunch meant mystery meat, wobbly Jell-O salads, and casseroles that looked like science experiments? Back in the 1960s, cafeteria ladies served up combinations that seemed normal then, but would send today's kids running for the nearest pizza slice. From liver and onions to creamed spinach surprises, these meals were considered nutritious fuel for growing minds, until food standards and taste buds evolved way beyond recognition. Let's take a trip back to the lunch trays of yesterday and explore 20 school lunches from the 1960s that no kid would touch today. 1. Liver and onions. Nothing struck fear into the hearts of 1960s students quite like the announcement that Thursday was Liver and Onions Day. This iron-rich powerhouse dominated school cafeterias across America, served in over 85% of public schools as mandatory nutrition that would supposedly build stronger, smarter citizens. While today's kids might stage a cafeteria revolt at the sight of organ meat, back then liver and onions was considered the ultimate protein delivery system, packed with more nutrients per ounce than any other food on the government-approved menu. What made this dish truly special wasn't just the nutritional density, but the almost ritualistic preparation that cafeteria ladies perfected across the nation. These culinary warriors discovered that the secret to making organ meat palatable to children involved heavy-handed seasoning, industrial amounts of flour for coating, and enough caramelized onions to mask what many described as the metallic taste of justice. The liver came pre-sliced from government suppliers, each piece precisely cut to deliver exactly 4 ounces of iron-loaded nutrition, whether kids wanted it or not. The cultural impact was profound. This wasn't just food, it was character development on a plate. Parents praised liver and onions as the lunch that separated tough kids from weaklings, teaching children that life sometimes requires consuming things you don't enjoy. Teachers used it as a life lesson, explaining that the same determination needed to finish your liver would serve students well in algebra class and eventually the working world. Some schools even implemented a clean plate club where finishing your liver earned you a gold star, creating an early reward system that would make modern behavioral psychologists weep with pride. At its peak in the mid-1960s, over 45 million American students consumed liver weekly across more than 50,000 school districts nationwide. The economics were impossible to ignore. Liver cost just 89 cents per pound compared to ground beef at $1.49, allowing cash-strapped school districts to serve premium protein while staying within Depression-era budgets that many administrators still maintained out of habit. Everything changed when nutritionists in the 1970s discovered that children could obtain iron from less traumatic sources like fortified cereals and spinach. The death blow came as food safety concerns grew and students became increasingly vocal about their dietary preferences. Modern cafeterias replaced liver with grilled chicken breast and turkey, while contemporary students enjoy the luxury of choosing between multiple protein options. Today, suggesting liver and onions for school lunch would trigger parent petitions, social media campaigns, and possibly a visit from Child Protective Services. The closest modern equivalent might be a Beyond Burger, though that comparison would probably offend both the vegans and the ghost of every 1960s cafeteria lady who perfected the art of making organ meat edible to ungrateful children. 2. Cream chip beef on toast SOS. If liver and onions was the villain of 1960s school lunches, then cream chip beef on toast was the antihero that nobody asked for but somehow learned to tolerate. This military-inspired monstrosity dominated cafeteria menus across rural America, where feeding students meant transforming the cheapest possible ingredients into something that technically qualified as a meal. Schools served this budget masterpiece daily, proudly announcing it as comfort food, while students whispered its real nickname, S*** on a shingle. The genius of SOS lay in its ability to turn dried beef scraps into what cafeteria ladies genuinely believed was gourmet dining. The process involved reconstituting mystery meat that had been preserved with enough salt to de-ice a highway, then drowning it in a white sauce made from industrial-grade flour, butter, and whatever milk powder happened to be available. This culinary alchemy transformed inedible leftovers into a beige paste that could theoretically sustain human life, though the jury remained out on whether it actually qualified as food. Students developed a complex relationship with SOS that bordered on Stockholm Syndrome. While nobody would admit to enjoying it, finishing your serving became a badge of honor that proved you could survive anything the adult world threw at you. Teachers praised it as character-building nutrition, explaining that soldiers had eaten this exact meal while defending democracy, which made complaining about lunch seem unpatriotic. The economics were undeniable. At just 12 cents per serving, SOS could feed an entire classroom using ingredients that cost less than a candy bar. A single 5-pound bag of dried beef could stretch across 200 servings when properly diluted with enough flour-based sauce, making it the ultimate Depression-era survival food that somehow survived into the 1960s. The beginning of the end came when fresh meat became affordable and parents started demanding higher standards than technically edible. Health advocates eventually realized that a single serving contained enough sodium to violate several international treaties, while students simply refused to accept food that looked like wallpaper paste. Today's cafeterias serve grilled chicken wraps and paninis that would seem impossibly luxurious to 1960 standards. Modern students complaining about cafeteria food have clearly never faced the existential challenge of consuming mystery meat swimming in flour paste while maintaining their dignity. 3. Aspic vegetable gelatin salad. Picture this: wobbly towers of lime green gelatin containing suspended lima beans, carrots, and celery, quivering ominously on lunch trays like something from a 1950 science fiction movie. These aspic vegetable gelatin salads represented the absolute pinnacle of cafeteria sophistication, transforming ordinary vegetables into what administrators genuinely believed was elegant cuisine worthy of the finest country clubs. During the 1960s, serving molded gelatin with embedded vegetables was considered so refined that many schools featured them as the centerpiece of special occasion lunches. The innovation behind these jiggly creations was pure cafeteria genius. Why serve fresh vegetables when you could suspend them in artificially flavored gelatin that would never spoil, never wilt, and never require actual refrigeration? Cafeteria ladies mastered the art of encasing lima beans, diced carrots, and celery pieces in lime Jell-O, creating salad without the inconvenience of fresh produce or the expense of proper storage. The process involved industrial-sized packets of gelatin mix, government surplus canned vegetables, and enough food coloring to make a rainbow jealous. Students and teachers praised these translucent towers as educational tools that combine nutrition with physics lessons. Children could observe how different vegetables floated at various densities within the gelatin matrix, while supposedly absorbing vitamins from the trapped vegetables. Some creative cafeteria workers even created layered versions using different colored gelatin, producing striped monuments to mid-century food science that belonged in a museum rather than on a lunch tray. The economics were impossible to argue with. Cafeterias could prepare 500 servings using massive industrial molds and just $8 worth of ingredients. A single batch required only gelatin powder, canned vegetables, and tap water, making it one of the most cost-effective ways to technically serve vegetables to budget-conscious school districts. Everything changed during the 1970s wellness movement when parents discovered that fresh vegetables actually contained more nutrients than their gelatin-imprisoned counterparts. Health advocates realized these colorful creations delivered more artificial ingredients than actual nutrition, while students developed increasingly sophisticated palates that rejected foods resembling alien experiments. Today's salad bars featuring organic spinach, heirloom tomatoes, and fresh cucumbers would make 1960s cafeteria ladies weep with confusion. Modern students choosing between 15 different vegetables can't imagine a time when salad meant lima beans trapped in lime-flavored prison. 4. Succotash Supreme. Nothing said institutional dining excellence quite like a steaming pile of lima beans mixed with corn kernels, drowning in enough butter to lubricate a school bus engine. Succotash Supreme dominated cafeteria menus as the vegetable dish that represented peak sophistication in mid-century institutional cooking, combining two of the most controversial vegetables in the American childhood experience into one inescapable side dish. During the 1960s, serving succotash was considered so nutritionally advanced that cafeteria administrators actually believed they were providing gourmet dining to students who clearly didn't appreciate fine cuisine. The diabolic genius of succotash lay in its strategic design. By combining lima beans and corn into a single dish, cafeteria ladies eliminated any possibility of students picking around the parts they hated. This wasn't just cooking. It was psychological warfare disguised as nutrition education. The preparation involved massive industrial steamers that could render lima beans into submission while maintaining corn kernels at the perfect texture somewhere between crunchy and mushy, a consistency that food scientists still struggle to categorize today. Teachers and administrators praised succotash as character-building food that taught children important life lessons about accepting things they couldn't change. Some schools even implemented succotash appreciation days, where students had to write essays about why vegetables were important, creating the first documented cases of creative writing assignments that made children lie about their feelings toward lima beans. The economics were undeniably attractive. Using government surplus commodities meant feeding thousands of students while costing taxpayers practically nothing. A single batch could serve 400 students using just 50 pounds of frozen lima beans, 30 pounds of corn, and enough margarine to make the mixture technically edible, coming in at roughly 8 cents per serving. The beginning of the end came when frozen vegetable technology improved and parents began demanding that school vegetables actually resemble food rather than punishment. Modern nutrition standards eventually recognized that forcing children to consume vegetables they despised might create lifelong food aversions rather than healthy eating habits. Today's cafeterias offer fresh fruit cups, baby carrots with ranch dressing, and roasted vegetable medleys that would seem impossibly luxurious to 1960s standards. Contemporary students choosing between multiple vegetable options can't imagine a time when eat your vegetables meant choking down lima beans that had been cooked into submission and mixed with corn to prevent escape. 5. Tuna noodle casserole surprise. Friday meant one thing in 1960s Catholic schools and many public institutions. The dreaded yet beloved tuna noodle casserole, a one-dish wonder that somehow managed to combine protein, starch, and vegetables into what administrators proudly called complete nutrition in convenient form. This institutional masterpiece dominated cafeteria steam tables across America, representing the absolute pinnacle of budget-friendly comfort food that could feed hundreds of students using ingredients that had probably been sitting in storage since the Eisenhower administration. The innovation behind tuna noodle casserole was pure cafeteria brilliance. Take canned tuna that had been swimming in its own juices since before most students were born, combine it with egg noodles soft enough to require no chewing, and bind everything together with cream of mushroom soup that contained more sodium than the Dead Sea. The surprise element came from the mysterious additions that varied by cafeteria. Sometimes frozen peas that had achieved the texture of rubber balls, occasionally diced celery that crunched like gravel, and always enough breadcrumb topping to create what looked like a sandbox that exploded over your lunch. This wasn't just food. It was a cultural institution that made Catholic meatless Fridays bearable for entire school populations. Teachers praised it as economical nutrition that taught students about making the best of limited resources, while cafeteria ladies took genuine pride in their ability to stretch 24 cans of tuna into a meal for 300 hungry children. The preparation involved industrial-sized pans that could accommodate enough noodles to feed a small army, creating a dish so massive it required 2 cafeteria workers to carry it from oven to serving line. At its peak, a single recipe could feed an entire elementary school using just $12 worth of ingredients, making it one of the most cost-effective protein sources in institutional cooking history. The economics were so attractive that some schools serve variations of tuna casserole up to 3 times per week, creating what psychologists would later recognize as the first documented cases of institutional food trauma. Everything changed when fresh fish became accessible and parents began demanding actual seafood instead of whatever had been living in those mysterious cans. Food allergies and mercury concerns eventually made canned tuna controversial in school settings, while modern nutrition standards required actual vegetables instead of cream of whatever soup. Today's cafeterias offer sushi rolls and poke bowls that would completely mystify 1960s lunch ladies who perfected the art of making canned fish taste like comfort food. 6. Beef heart stew. If you thought liver and onions was traumatic, welcome to the nightmare fuel that was beef heart stew, a dish so authentically organ-based that even cafeteria ladies whispered about it in hushed tones. This cardiac cuisine dominated school lunch programs during the height of Cold War nutrition education, when feeding American children actual heart muscle was considered premium protein that would build patriots strong enough to defeat communist threats through superior cardiovascular health. School districts across the nation proudly served this organ meat masterpiece, believing they were providing elite nutrition that separated American students from their presumably heart-deficient international competitors. The culinary innovation behind beef heart stew was both impressive and terrifying. Cafeteria workers discovered that slow-cooking tough heart muscle with root vegetables and industrial-strength seasoning could transform what essentially amounted to cardiovascular leftovers into something that technically qualified as edible. The preparation process involved massive pressure cookers that could tenderize heart tissue until it achieved the consistency of regular beef, though the distinctive metallic flavor and dense texture always reminded students that they were consuming the engine of a cow's circulatory system. Principals and administrators used this meal as a teaching moment about waste reduction and appreciating all parts of animals, essentially turning lunch period into a morality lesson about American efficiency versus global food waste. Teachers praised students who finished their heart stew as demonstrating the kind of tough character that built great nations, while those who couldn't manage more than a few bites were gently reminded about starving children in other countries who would gladly eat organ meat. The economics were undeniably attractive. Beef heart cost roughly 40% less than regular beef, while providing superior protein density per serving, allowing budget-conscious school districts to serve premium meat at hamburger prices. A single institutional pot could feed 250 students using just 30 pounds of heart muscle and whatever vegetables happened to be available in government surplus. Everything changed in the 1970s when conventional ground beef became affordable for institutional purchasing and parents began questioning whether serving actual organs to children constituted proper nutrition or psychological warfare. Modern food psychology eventually recognized that forcing students to consume identifiable body parts might create trauma rather than character development. Today's mystery meat complaints seem adorably quaint compared to an era when schools served actual recognizable organs. Contemporary students enjoying grilled chicken breast have no idea how good they have it compared to previous generations who built character one cardiac muscle fiber at a time. 7. Cream spinach delight. Armed with the cultural authority of Popeye the Sailor Man and the nutritional conviction of Depression-era mothers, creamed spinach dominated 1960s school cafeterias as the green superfood that promised to transform ordinary American children into iron-fortified patriots capable of single-handedly winning the space race. This emerald-colored paste appeared on lunch trays nationwide, marketed as the vegetable equivalent of a superhero serum that would build students strong enough to construct nuclear submarines with their bare hands while simultaneously solving complex mathematical equations. The culinary innovation behind creamed spinach was both ingenious and slightly horrifying. Cafeteria ladies discovered that drowning bitter leafy greens in enough heavy cream sauce could theoretically make any vegetable palatable to children who had never voluntarily consumed anything green that wasn't artificially flavored. The preparation involved industrial steamers that could reduce fresh spinach to a consistency somewhere between baby food and wallpaper paste, then binding it with a white sauce containing enough dairy fat to lubricate a tank engine, while masking the distinctive flavor that made most students question whether plants were actually meant for human consumption. Teachers embraced creamed spinach as the ultimate educational tool, using cartoon character endorsements to convince students that vegetables equaled superpowers while completely ignoring the irony that Popeye consumed his spinach straight from the can rather than swimming in cream sauce. Classrooms feature nutrition posters showing muscular cartoon characters praising the iron content of spinach, creating the first documented cases of using fictional maritime characters to promote institutional food consumption. At its nutritional peak, cafeterias serve cream spinach to over 30 million students monthly as a mandatory iron and vitamin source, with each serving containing enough leafy greens to theoretically meet daily requirements if you could ignore the fact that the cream sauce contained more calories than the spinach provided nutrients. The economics were compelling. A single batch could feed 200 students using just 15 pounds of frozen spinach and enough dairy products to stock a small ice cream shop. The beginning of the end came when nutritionists discovered that coating vegetables in heavy cream sauce essentially defeated the purpose of serving vegetables in the first place. Parents began demanding fresh alternatives when they realized their children were consuming more dairy fat than actual plant matter, while students developed increasingly sophisticated palates that rejected foods resembling green cement. Today's cafeterias offer fresh spinach in wraps, salads, and smoothies that would completely mystify 1960s lunch ladies who believed the only way to serve vegetables was to disguise them beyond recognition using industrial quantities of dairy products. 8. Government cheese sandwiches. Nothing represented American ingenuity in mass food production quite like government cheese, a processed dairy product so perfectly engineered for institutional use that it could survive nuclear fallout while maintaining its ability to melt into perfect sandwich form. This orange-tinted marvel dominated school cafeterias throughout the 1960s as the ultimate symbol of efficient nutrition delivery, transforming the simple cheese sandwich from a basic lunch option into a patriotic statement about feeding the masses with scientific precision and unwavering consistency. The innovation behind government cheese was pure food science brilliance. Engineers created a cheese product that never spoiled, melted uniformly without burning, could be sliced without cracking, and maintained identical flavor profiles whether stored for weeks or months. This wasn't just cheese. It was dairy technology that solved every problem institutional kitchens had ever encountered with natural cheese, which had the annoying tendency to develop mold, vary in taste, and cost actual money that school districts didn't have. Culturally, government cheese sandwiches represented something deeper than mere sustenance. They symbolized government assistance that fed low-income students without creating stigma or embarrassment. Teachers praised these sandwiches as examples of American efficiency, while cafeteria ladies took pride in their ability to produce perfectly uniform meals that treated every student equally, regardless of their family's economic situation. The bright orange color became a comforting constant in an uncertain world. The economics were absolutely undeniable. A single 5-pound block could create 40 sandwiches using industrial white bread and margarine, coming in at roughly 15 cents per serving, including labor costs. Cafeterias could feed entire schools using surplus commodities that would otherwise go to waste, creating a system so efficient that business schools studied it as a model of institutional food service. Everything changed when real cheese became cost-competitive and parents learned about processed food health concerns. Nutrition advocates began questioning whether feeding children artificially colored dairy products constituted proper nutrition or chemical experimentation, while students developed increasingly sophisticated palates that could detect the difference between actual cheese and whatever had been engineered in government laboratories. Today's artisanal grilled cheese sandwiches featuring aged cheddar and sourdough bread would cost more than entire 1960s lunch programs. While contemporary students choosing between multiple cheese varieties can't imagine a time when all cheese was the same shade of construction cone orange and came with federal approval stamps.